Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning into our live Q&A, midweek little Bible study, a little Q&A from my front porch. It's great to see you. If you're on, please hit share, hit like, comment, let me know you're watching, just so I can say hi and give you a little shout out. So we had like some intense rain, like the skies were super dark this morning. So mid morning we had this crazy rain. I want to show you. Let me see if I can do this. This is just the back end of my camera, and that's what our sky looks like. That's literally my view right now. It is like so amazing out here today. Love the rain. After the rain, the skies are clear. It's beautiful. It's cool. It's like 70 degrees out here today. So I hope you guys are having a good day wherever you're at. However, you're enjoying the quarantine. In Tennessee, the quarantine officially is coming to an end. Although I know a lot of pastors and churches, we've been texting back and forth quite a bit, that are more than likely not going to go right back. We're going to try to practice good social distancing and love and care for people well by being really wise about how we reintroduce ourselves back into public gatherings, which for I know a lot of churches will be for a while. So I just wanted to come to you this morning and this afternoon and share a little bit about what God's been shared with me. I had a men's group, 6 o'clock this morning. And we were wrapping up in our men's group. We are like 1 week behind the church reading plan, so we were wrapping up in Acts. So this was like, and then this upcoming week we're going to be reading in Ephesians, which if you're doing our church-wide reading plan, we're starting Ephesians this week, Ephesians 1 through 3. It's going to be fantastic. I absolutely love Ephesians. It's like my favorite book of the Bible, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's awesome. So I can't wait for our church to get into that, but we're at the end of Acts, and by the way, if you're hearing crap back and forth, that's just me sitting on my front porch. It was in the shade, and I wasn't going to get sunburned sitting out front here, so that's why I wanted us to go here. But at the end of Acts, Paul has been arrested, and so he's getting passed on from person to person to person, all these different Roman officials, and the Jewish people are trying to get the Romans to like pretty much just throw Paul in prison or to kill Paul, just like what they did with Jesus. They're trying to get the state to kind of sponsor the execution of Paul. But as over and over and over again, we see Paul didn't do anything wrong. And the Romans aren't Jewish people, so they don't care about Jewish law and debates about the resurrection from the dead, and they don't care about these things. So it's really very interesting that Paul is just literally getting a chance to talk with all of these different high-ranking kings and officials. And we actually believe that Paul went and spoke to Caesar. He spoke to the leader of literally the free world. It would be the equivalent of going to the president of the United States and speaking the gospel to him directly. And so he's getting shuffled around to all these different Roman officials, and he's presenting the gospel to each of them. And in Acts 26, he says, he's speaking in front of King Agrippa, and he says these words. He says that he's talking that he literally is saying that I'm not crazy, and he says, King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know that you believe. And Agrippa said to Paul, in a short time, would you persuade me to be a Christian? And Paul said, whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but all who hear me this day might become such as I am, except for these chains. I thought that was such an interesting thing that he said. So essentially he's having this back and forth with King Agrippa, and there's this kind of governor, a guy named Festus, right? Which, by the way, is a great name. If you're having a baby, you should totally name your baby's name Festus. But Festus jumps into this conversation that Paul is having with King Agrippa, and he says, Paul, your great learning has drove you mad. You're acting insane right now. And Paul says, no, I'm not acting insane. I'm completely stable in my mind. In fact, King Agrippa has heard these things, and he believes these things. King Agrippa, do you believe? Do you believe in Jesus? And kind of as this back and forth conversation is going, there's this kind of banter back and forth between, very kind of familiar banter between Paul and King Agrippa. And King Agrippa says, man, soon enough you're going to convince me to be a Christian. And Paul says these amazing words, and I want to read them again. And this is Acts 26, starting in verse 29. He says, whether short or long, I would to God. He says, in a short time, you would persuade me to be a Christian? And Paul said, whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but all who hear me this day might become such as I am, except for these chains. And so what Paul is saying is, I wish that you would become a Christian. I wish that you would have what I have, except I don't want you to be imprisoned, right? So he wants to give them all the benefits of Christianity, but without all the detractions of being a prisoner. And I just thought that was so incredibly interesting, and I think it's good for us to consider today, is this idea of what is our heart towards those who disagree with us? What is our heart towards those who doubt Jesus, who doubt Christ? If you're watching this and you have questions, maybe you don't believe this, maybe you think it's all hogwash. Like, what should be the attitude of a follower of Jesus to people who question whether or not this thing is real, and who, quite frankly, might not believe it or scoff at it? And I think the genuine heart that a Christian should have is one that genuinely longs for people to experience what we have, right? That's what he says. Whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but all who hear me this day might become such as I am. Paul's saying, I got something, and I want you guys to have it too. And so for me, if you're joining us and you're not yet a follower of Jesus, I want you to know that you're completely welcome at our church. This is why we do this, is we want to see you in an environment where you can engage with spiritual questions without judgment, without any sort of side eyes that people are looking at you like, why are you asking those questions? Like, we want our culture to just be really open to ask a bunch of questions and to be open to disagree, because I believe that within disagreement, we can come into good dialogue that might help hone both of our positions, right? So there's that piece, but then there's also another piece that says, like, I want us as a church, and if you do identify as a follower of Jesus and you are a part of our church family as a follower of Jesus, I want you to be genuinely receiving the grace of God so that you can then, with Paul, say, I wish that you were as I am. That you can look at your neighbors and say, I wish that you experience the same thing as I do. And so often I look at Christians, and I look at Christians who grew up, especially in the cultural South, where you see Christians that call themselves Christians because they've been going to church and they saw Jesus on a flannel graph on a Sunday morning, but they've never actually made a commitment to Christ, and they're absolutely miserable, guys. I don't know if you've met those people, but I've met a bunch of Christians that claim to be Christians that are absolutely miserable people. So in no way, shape, or form would we want to say, I wish that you were as I am, because at the end of the day, who would want to be like that? Who would want to be miserable and bitter and angry and judgmental towards other people? So what I want to encourage us today is, regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, I want you to engage with the message of Jesus in such a way that you are filled with his grace. I want you to be filled with the grace of God so much that and you live free to the degree that you could wish that other people are like you are. Does that make sense? So that's, I think, really important, because so often I think the term evangelism has been thrown around about content dissemination. Like, I just want people to understand what I understand and believe what I believe. And for me, hey, that's one of my neighbors. But for me, what I want even deeper is I want my friends and neighbors to be experiencing the gospel as I am experiencing the gospel. Does that make sense? So that adds a layer of genuineness to it, that this is not some sort of abstract concept that I want people to believe kind of intellectually, but on a much deeper heart level, I want people to be experiencing Jesus as I am experiencing Jesus. So that means that Redeeming Hope, as a church, we have to be legitimate. We actually legitimately have to be in the scriptures. We legitimately have to be experiencing God's grace. We have to legitimately be growing in grace. If we want to talk the talk, we've got to walk the walk. And we've got to legitimately be following Jesus in a way that our lives are better because Jesus is in them. And that, flowing out of that, comes evangelism that's natural to who you are. It's not like going knocking on people's doors saying, do you want to hear about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? You're going to get the door slammed in your face. And rightfully so. I'd probably do the same thing. But if I have a relationship with somebody, right, and I know that they are thriving, then I want to thrive as they are thriving. So that's the invitation of Jesus, is not to believe some abstract concept, but for your life to be changed, and then for you to change other people's lives as they see your life changed by Jesus. That's the invitation of Christ for us today. So I just want to encourage us in that. Let's be legitimate this week. Let's legitimately read the Bible. Let's legitimately pray. Let's legitimately be changed by Jesus, and then simply just put that on display for our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, our family to see, and they will naturally be drawn to that. And if you're joining us and you don't yet know Jesus and you don't identify as a follower of Jesus, then what I want to say is that I am going to tell you from my own heart and life that as I follow Jesus, my life is better. I'm more filled with grace. I'm more filled with peace in my life. That when I'm not filled with grace and peace, I have a way to access that grace and peace. Because sometimes I don't feel grace and peace in my life. But that's because I'm not consistently in the scriptures. I'm not consistently in prayer. When I am with Christ, when I follow Jesus with my life is better. It just, quite frankly, it's just better. And that's what I want for you. I want you guys to be experiencing the grace that I'm experiencing. And for our friends at Redeeming Hope that do follow Jesus, I want you to legitimately be experiencing that grace so that you can invite others to experience it with you. So, with that, I see Robert Guidry is on. The gospel is grace and peace, not shame and condemnation. Thank you, Robert. That's a really good point, man. Gospel is grace and peace, not shame and condemnation. I want to give us a few things to encourage us. We have been doing this thing called hashtag Redeem the Quarantine. I want to invite us into different ways that we can redeem this time. I know that we are approaching the end of it, at least in Clarksville and in Tennessee, at least for the government-mandated quarantine. But I just want to continue to encourage us that we want to continue some of these practices that maybe we've started over the past few weeks. So the first thing is we can be honest about who we are. We can acknowledge that we don't feel at peace sometimes, and then we can turn to Jesus to receive that peace. So first, I just want to encourage us to acknowledge that this is a fearful time, that pandemics are scary. Secondly, I want to encourage us to stay in the Word, stay in the Scriptures, read consistently, read the Bible. It will do you good. It will help you. You will be able to access that grace and peace from the Scriptures. Third, I want to encourage you not to placate. Don't placate with social media, with videos all the time, with hours and hours of YouTube or video games. Like all those things are good in context, right? And all those things are good in moderation, but don't hide and go away from their emotions, right? Go away from your emotions just to look at something that's going to distract you. So, and the fourth thing I want to encourage us to do is rest. Like, we legitimately want to rest. And I want you to rest. So if you have a job where you're able to stay at home and you can take an hour, go take a nap. Sleep in one day. It's okay. Like, the world is different, and that's all right. And we can enjoy this rhythm and not have to feel guilty. Gary jumped in. I want to acknowledge something that Gary said for me. Robert said that hashtag was so cringe. That's okay. Gary said, don't force it down their throats. Just demonstrate and they will follow. All of Jesus' followers came from seeing what he was doing, not from him knocking on doors. That's very true. Like, Jesus clearly invited people and said, follow me, right? But what you see is that the reputation of Jesus was people began to be changed as they were in the presence of Jesus. And so as Jesus was sent into the world, so we are called to be sent into the world. John 20:21, this is Jesus speaking. He said, as I have been sent, so send I you. So in the nature of Jesus' sentness, we are called to be sent. So Gary, that's a great point. Demonstrate it, live it, be legitimate, legitimately practice these things. And then guess what? People will be drawn to that. So we talked about a couple ways to redeem the quarantine, a couple more ways to redeem the quarantine. Exercise, get out there, walk. It is a beautiful day today after this rain in Clarksville. So try to get a little exercise, get some vitamin D. I'm spending a lot of time outside, and it's been fantastic for my mental and emotional state. Next, intentionally connect. Intentionally connect with your family and with your friends. You can call people. Millennials are picking up the phone now, and it's great. People are actually talking on the phone again. And I love it. So we're doing a lot of Zoom calls. We're Zooming. Rachel and I put up a Zoom call tonight with one of our friends in Maryland that we just haven't connected with in a while. And so we're going to touch base with them. So just intentionally connect with your family, intentionally connect with your kids, with your spouse, with the people in your life. It will help you. And then finally, serve. Just want to invite you. There are simple ways that you can serve. One of the ways is the Swag Bag Initiative. So we started this thing called the 3-2-1 Swag Bag Initiative. So everybody in our church, or most of the people in our church that didn't just have a baby or aren't in life transition, we gave 3 gift bags or branded gift bags from Redeeming Hope. and it's got hand sanitizer, it's got toilet paper, it's got paper towels, hand lotion, a bunch of other cool things. And what we encourage everybody to do is you get 3 bags, you give 2 away, and you keep 1 for you and your family. So if you got those, I want to encourage you to hand those out to your neighbors. Handwritten note, drop it off on their front porch. You can be socially distanced. You don't have to talk to anybody. But then they know that it came from you, and then they can have some information about ways to join a church family. So really would love to have you encourage your neighbors to connect with us if they don't have a church home. And then also, if you would like more of those bags, we're making more of them in the near future for you to hand out to your friends and neighbors. Another way is just simply to walk and speak to your neighbors as you walk by them. Like, just ask them how they're doing. Ask their name. If you don't have their name, you don't know their name, you can ask for their name. Say, hey, can I grab your number just to shoot you a text? Like, those types of simple interactions are ways to just serve others and get a finger on the pulse of what people need. If you're watching us and you have a church home, you have a church family, we just want to encourage you to connect with your church. Find ways to connect with your church. So Robert made a point to say that, and I appreciate that, Robert. So I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. We care for you. If you need anything, you can jet us a text message. Let me see about the text message. Here, I'll put it in the corner. If you'd like to meet up with me, if you have any questions, if you have any needs for prayer or anything like that, you can just jet us a text message, 931-326-4512. And then also just a reminder, every Sunday we do a watch party at 10 for a pre-recorded message, and then at 11 o'clock we do a live Q&A to talk about what we just finished viewing over that message time. So that's really important in the life of our church. Also, we've got groups that are meeting all throughout the week that we'd love to encourage you to jump into. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we love you guys. Please reach out if you need anything, and we hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye.